Thank you very much, and I am very pleased that the Iraqis are deciding now to start defend themselves. I think it's wonderful. Wish it had happened a number of years ago. With that, let me recognize the woman from South Dakota, a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee. I yield 5 minutes to Representative Stephanie Herseth.
The gentlewoman from South Dakota is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to join so many other proud and patriotic members of this body, including a number of our military veterans, in support of this bipartisan resolution. Just over a year ago, when I was in Iraq on my second trip to the region, I shared the optimism and the assessment of many that following 3 consecutive elections in 2005 with increasing turnout among Iraqi voters in each, that 2006 would be a key transitional year militarily, politically, and economically. However, a year ago this month, the sectarian strife in Iraq began to worsen, and our inadequate planning for possible and likely scenarios that could unfold in this war continued to catch up with us and continued to narrow our strategic options. As initial and important political developments did eventually unfold throughout last summer, sectarian violence did not abate, but intensified, particularly in Baghdad. In response, U.S. forces were part of as many as 4 different efforts to enhance security in the capital in order to ease the path toward further essential political compromise. None of these efforts proved successful because of the limitations of the Iraqi security forces and police and the restrictions imposed by Iraqi government leaders. I had serious concerns when the President proposed last month to increase the number of troops in Iraq, and I hold them still today. I have serious concerns regarding the ability of Iraqi security forces not only to act as a reliable partner in the efforts to secure Baghdad, but to take on and maintain the lead in such efforts. Concerns echoed in the most recent national intelligence estimate on Iraq. I have serious concerns regarding whether this plan is sufficiently different from previous efforts to secure the Iraqi capital, particularly when Prime Minister al-Maliki's initial proposal presented to the President in December did not envision additional U.S. troops as part of the effort. I have serious concerns about the further erosion of the commitment of our coalition partners and other allies if indeed Iraq is the central front of our battle against terrorism. Now, there's no doubt that al-Qaeda in Iraq and elsewhere poses a real and serious threat to our security in the Middle East and to our national security here at home. But the security situation in Iraq has evolved to include a complex civil war described as a self-sustaining intersectarian struggle by the NIE for which additional U.S. troops should not be on the front line to resolve. The Iraqi government needs to understand they're on borrowed time, and they must take greater control of the future of their own country through political reconciliation to quell the sectarian violence. Iraq's neighbors and the international community must be more engaged diplomatically to end the sectarian strife so as to prevent the spread of it and the instability in the region that would result. Moreover, as recent oversight hearings have revealed, such a large escalation of both combat and support troops undoubtedly will have an impact on our overall military readiness. And despite their unwavering commitment to serve when called, there may be serious consequences for National Guard and reservists, as redeployments of full units will be required to implement the troop surge, according to Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. So after carefully reviewing the President's proposal to increase the number of U.S. troops in Iraq, hearing testimony from senior members of the military and analyzing the public statements of combatant commanders, and speaking with many of those from my home state of South Dakota who have served or who have loved ones who are serving in the war on terror, I conclude we should not stay this course. I remain unconvinced that sending additional troops to Iraq is the best way forward. Now, some who support the escalation have described it as our last best chance to win. To me, that's a clear acknowledgement that the President's plan further narrows rather than expands our strategic options. And let me add this. This is an issue that demands a bipartisan approach, and it's most unfortunate the administration has made a decision that dismisses the recommendations of the bipartisan Iraq Study Group. I believe this bipartisan, narrowly crafted resolution reflects the public's and Congress's assessment that increasing our military's combat role, especially in the midst of an intensifying sectarian struggle, is not the answer. And for those who would attack this limited resolution and debate this and the debate surrounding it, or to suggest and ask whose side are you on, I would refer them to the comments of Secretary Gates from his testimony in the House Armed Services Committee last week, in which he said that the troops are, quote, sophisticated enough to understand that the debate's really about the path forward in Iraq, They understand that the debate's being carried on by patriotic people who care about them and who care about the mission. Lastly, I want to reemphasize the first part of today's important resolution. Congress and the American people will continue to support and protect members of the U.S. Armed Forces who are serving or who have served bravely and honorably in Iraq. We have a new generation of veterans returning from Iraq. As a subcommittee chair on the House Veterans Affairs Committee, I will work with all of my colleagues to ensure that the tens of thousands of young people coming home, some after their second, third, and fourth tours, many with severe and debilitating physical and mental wounds, return to the democracy for which I ask the gentleman to yield an additional 15 seconds.
I yield 15 seconds to the gentlelady.
The gentlelady has an additional 15 seconds.
That these young people return to the democracy for which they fought to protect, with a government that recognizes their service and sacrifice with more than just words of gratitude, but with action that fulfills our nation's collective duty and obligation to them as veterans who take their place alongside the other fighting men and women who have kept America free and safe. I yield back.